You're not running it?
Good evening, everyone. Our chair is coming online right now. Thank you, Shannon, for joining us. Our meeting is part virtual and part in person this evening, so thank you for joining us, Chair Woolman.
Good evening. I am calling the Monday, November 15th, 2021 Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Tonight's Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting will be held virtually by using Zoom and in person while following social distance guidelines. As chair, I will be leading the Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting, and the public is welcome to participate when invited throughout the meeting. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person or join via online Zoom. If attendees experience audio problems, we suggest you leave the meeting and then rejoin. This has usually fixed the issue. Additional instructions on how to participate are posted online at www.burnsvillemn.gov in the public meeting calendar. As usual, tonight's meeting is available for viewing on BCTV and on the city website. If you are unable to participate this evening and would like to submit public testimony, I encourage you to email your comments to city staff or mail your comments directly to City Hall. You may participate in the meeting tonight online by going to https://zoom.us/join and typing in webinar ID 97513492880. You may also call into the meeting at 651-372-8299. For each public hearing, I will open up a time when the callers may speak to that item and will give more instructions at that time. Your call will be muted until then. Please note, there may be a slight delay due to the differences in technology. If speaking by phone, please mute your computer since there may be a delay. Now, on to the agenda. Adoption of the agenda. The first item of the Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting tonight is adoption of the agenda. Do any members of the commission have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Staff, do you have any changes to the agenda?
Nothing from staff.
Great. May I have a motion for adoption of the agenda?
So move. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And now we move on to approval of the minutes. Commissioners, are there any changes to the minutes?
I move we approve.
Second.
Thank you. At this time, are there any members of the public on the Zoom meeting who wish to speak? Are there any telephone callers who wish to speak at this time? If so, you may press *6 to unmute yourself. And are there any members of the public in the audience at City Hall that would like to speak?
We do have somebody here, Chair Woolman. Please come forward if you'd like to speak.
I believe he's here to talk about the trail.
Okay, so not something of a different item. Okay, very good.
Perfect. Excuse me. I will now invite Sue Bass, Environmental Specialist, to present on the 2021 Sustainability Update.
Good evening. I'm Sue Bass, the Sustainability Coordinator for City of Burnsville. And this evening, I am going to be talking about what we've done this year in sustainability, or cover the highlights anyway, which include a great fire truck, home energy squad, organics drop-off site, the Wellspring program, EV charging, and the Grow Burnsville program. I'll start with the fire truck. The city of Burnsville purchased a new fire truck, and it is a traditional diesel engine, but it has the added benefit of being able to run the apparatus off of battery. And so they can shut down the fire truck, the diesel part, and use just the battery. So this saves hours of idling, which saves gas, reduces the greenhouse gas emissions, less noise, less maintenance, and a longer engine life. So very good to have that new fire truck online. We have started, City of Burnsville has started a home energy squad program that they are working with Xcel Energy and CenterPoint Energy. And City of Burnsville is paying half of the cost of a home energy squad visit for the first 200 residents that schedule a visit. And there so far have been 78 participants that have gotten that energy audit. One of the other things that we've done this year is coordinate with Dakota County to develop an organics drop-off site. And this is for food scraps, not yard waste. So residents that participate in the program, sign up with Dakota County, will get a container and some compostable bags, and they can put their food scraps in those compostable bags, bring it to the residential organics drop-off, which is on Civic Center Parkway. And that will get brought to a commercial composting site, and they will turn that food scraps into a soil amendment, and that soil amendment will help not only be very good for growing plants, but it will retain water and reduce runoff. So it's a great program, and right now there are 869 households using that drop-off. About, I think it's like 794 are Burnsville residents, and then there are some from Lakeville, Apple Valley, and Egan too. As you know, last year, in November of 2020, City Council approved a update to the sustainability plan. And part of that update was, in that update was a goal to achieve 100% renewable energy for all electricity use for city-owned facilities by 2030. So we're already working on that, and we're working with Dakota Electric Association and participating in their program, which is called the Wellspring Program. And this will offset 100% of our Dakota Electric Association conventional energy with renewable energy, and it's from wind farms. So we also, of course, have Xcel Energy for some of our facilities, and we'll in the future be working with them to see if we can work on the rest of our facilities. Electric vehicle charging. Several years, or 2019, I think it is, that we installed the 3 EV chargers, charging stations around the heart of the city. And just to let you know, typically an electric vehicle creates about a half as much pollution, carbon pollution, as a gas-powered vehicle. And from July 2019 to October 2021, there have been 895 vehicles that have used the charging stations, and it has been increasing significantly in the last 6 months, and saving a substantial amount of greenhouse gas emissions. And then we come to Grow Burnsville. We received a grant from the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the American Beverage Foundation for a Healthy America. And with that grant, $125,000 grant, we developed the program Grow Burnsville. And that has a number of components, education and then infrastructure, and education and outreach. And the infrastructure part, we have developed 3 major gardens. So the education and outreach part, we've given out 500 garden starter kits to residents, and that included seed packets and information on the Grow Burnsville program and how to get to the website and how to participate. We've hosted a table at the Party on the Plaza events and sent out Grow Burnsville Community Garden postcards to residents in the area of Crosstown East Park. And that is where the new community garden is located. We also hosted a harvest party on September 18th. And that included a sustainability walk with goats that were eating the buckthorn, and a tour of the food forest of the new garden, and it ended up at the market garden, one of our new gardens, and people could pick produce out of that garden. And there was apple tasting and master gardeners there answering questions, and a great cooking demonstration. So it was a fun day. The market garden, as I was talking about, we hired a garden manager and 6 interns, and they were around 14 or 15 years old. And they grew a lot of vegetables. In fact, they delivered 266 pounds of produce to 360 communities. We also produced 2 videos. One was of the cooking demonstration, and the other one, okay, so escape. And I would just want to show you this one video. It's a 2-minute video, it's not long, of the interns.
Then play in the bottom left corner with the mouse.
A little triangle?
We call it a market garden based solely just on how it's been outfitted, based on, conserving space, maximizing output, things like that. That follows the market garden model, but when it comes to where the produce goes, that's when it breaks off entirely, and you could think of it more as a giving garden.
I think it's awesome that we're able to provide fresh and healthy food to the community, and while doing so, you're able to gain experience with gardening and also working and collaborating with other interns.
It is a very relaxed job, so I would say don't worry about it. And a lot of people here, everyone here actually, is very kind and open to help if they need.
I come in and I helped pick out plants, but based on really what sounded cool to them and what sounded like it would be useful to the community. So trying to really bridge in what we were capable of growing, what they wanted to grow, and what the community wants to eat.
I've gardened, I've cooked, but I think this will help me just learn a lot more about different ways to use vegetables, different vegetables you can grow around here, and different ways to just get the most out of the vegetables that you have and how you get them.
To understand how plants can grow and understand the looks of plants, so I understand to pick them out easier.
I hope to be able to use what I learned from gardening this year and hopefully to be able to have a garden of my own someday.
I hope to get the experience of helping others. Though we don't really see where these plants go after they're harvested, I'm sure they will go to good use.
We harvest everything and bring it to local food shelves and community pantries.
It's just very fulfilling to be able to grow this food and know that it's going to go somewhere good after we're done with it.
This is a community project, so the community can feel free to come up and ask us questions whenever they want. I mean, a big part of what we do is community outreach.
Yep.
Where?
If you-
This right here?
Mouse over. This again.
Oh,
F5.
thank you. Oh. Oh, what did I do?
Technical errors.
Not with five?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, leave this out of place.
Oh, well, sorry. Okay, so that was the community garden. There's also a video, as I said, of the cooking demonstration. The second garden we developed was the community garden at Crosstown East Park. And there are 100 plots available. I think there was like about 15 people that rented a plot this year. It was a little bit tight of getting it up and going and being able to advertise about it too. So it's great to have that garden available. I just have to tell a little anecdote that at Party on the Plaza, someone came up to me and talked to me about that garden and said that she was a new person in Burnsville and was working, got a plot, and not only was that really nice, she lived in an apartment around the area, and that's why we put that community garden there, is because it was a lot of multifamily in the area. And after she was really happy to be able to grow her own vegetables, but in addition to that, she met a lot of very interesting people, and it became kind of a little community there of people that were growing their own vegetables. So it was a very positive thing that was going on for her. And the last part of the infrastructure is the food forest. That is a garden that has more than 30 varieties of edible plants. And produce is available for anyone to harvest once the fruits and vegetables are ready to eat. The edible plants will grow year after year without fertilizer or pesticides. Last year we had to do a little bit of watering because of the drought conditions, but normally they will grow on their own. And the map you see in the corner is the map we have developed for that food forest. And we are working to get that to be an interactive map so that when you click on Serviceberry, you can find out what it is, how, when the fruit is available, what you can use that fruit for. And so that will be very helpful in helping people to understand what they can do with the different fruits and vegetables. What is next for the Grow Burnsville program? We're developing a story map that talks about the garden program, the Grow Burnsville program, and as I talked about, the interactive map for the food forest, a permanent sign. And in 2022, we will continue with the market garden. And also have Master Gardener information sessions at Crosstown East Community Garden. So any questions on the update?
As far as the Wellspring program, are we going to be seeing windmills in
Maybe, I don't know, but not because of the Wellspring program. That, so the wind generators are, I think, in southwest Minnesota, but, you know, they can take that electricity and, well, it goes onto the grid, so it doesn't come right to us, but they keep track of what is generated by those wind generators. And then we buy those credits. It's called RECs, Renewable Energy Credits. So we purchase the renewable energy credits. Anything else?
I'm curious about the energy audit. So if someone who was listening was interested in doing an energy audit, what could they expect to happen?
I believe you call and schedule a program, or schedule a time for them to come out. And I believe it's an energy audit, so you'll have someone that will come through your home and audit the energy that is being used. I know I had one earlier this year, an energy audit, not through this particular program, because I'm not in Burnsville, but it was very helpful, and I'm now working on the different things that they have suggested to reduce my energy use. Also, I just wanted to add, so on the sustainability webpage for City of Burnsville, I have put the information that I just covered on a dashboard. And so it's all there, and the telephone number for the Home Energy Squad program is on that document, as well as the organics drop site, who to call and how to sign up.
So to clarify, if we call that number, we're going to be able to sign up and get Burnsville to pay half the price of the audit?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess just for everyone who might be interested in that, for Burnsville paying half, would it be a reimbursement or would it be at the time of sign up?
Oh, good question. Ryan, would you know that?
I don't, it's run through our code enforcement division. They would know. I think the best thing to do would be to go to the links that on our city website, and they'll have the specifics. Sorry, don't have
that's
the
okay.
information tonight.
Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there is no formal action required from us tonight. Just curious about our feedback, which is similar as we move into our next line item, which is the Lake Marion Trail Gap discussion.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Thanks for having us tonight. We're here to talk about the Lake Marion Trail, and particularly a segment of it that hasn't been built, that we're trying to get built so that we can make a connection to a trail that we have north of there and south of there. Our agenda tonight is, we're lucky enough to have John Mertens with Dakota County Parks here tonight to talk about the Lake Marion Trail Greenway in general and how this particular segment fits in. We have two members of our consulting team, Kirsten Gray and Matt Greenslit. Kirsten's going to talk about community input. So we've met with the community quite a bit, and we want to describe what we heard. And then I'll take it from there and describe how we're trying to take the community input and both meet the goals of our plans as well as what we heard from people living around there, trying to find the best solution that will work both for people that we want to use the trail from outside and also those who live around there. And then Matt will get into some of the details on that, and then we'll ask questions after that. I think it'd be most effective if we could go through the entire presentation, save your questions, and then ask them at the end, so because we may answer them along the way as we go. So with that, I would turn it over to John, who will talk about the Greenway in general from the perspective.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Before we get into the details of the project, we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of define what a greenway is and kind of set the context of the Dakota County greenway system. So Dakota County in 2010 re-envisioned the regional trail system as a regional greenway system. It's a network of 200 miles of trails that are in different stages of development, from nothing to complete operating Dakota County facilities. Defining a greenway, it has many definitions. The kind of the working definition we use at Dakota County is really a linear park. It is a corridor that provides multiple public values of non-motorized transportation, recreation, connecting habitat, open space and habitat areas, and really connecting places where people want to go in your community. The Lake Marion Greenway is highlighted in orange on this map. It's on the kind of the west side of Dakota County. It's a long greenway connecting from downtown Farmington all the way up to the Minnesota River. And in between is, and it's really can be thought of as three segments or sections. There's the part of the greenway that follows the South Creek from downtown Farmington to downtown Lakeville. Then from downtown Lakeville, it connects up to Murphy-Hannerhan Regional Park in Scott County. And that's where it picks up its name, the Lake Marion Greenway, because it follows an existing trail on the west side of Lake Marion. From Murphy-Hannerhan, then it connects into Burnsville. So so zooming into Burnsville and kind of talking more specifically about the project in front of you tonight, the areas in solid red are on the map are existing trails, and the southern part through Kelleher Park up to Sunset Park was recently completed this past year with a fabulous boardwalk across a large wetland in Kelleher Park. So when this project is completed, as Ryan mentioned, we'll have completed 4 miles of the Lake Marion Greenway within the city of Burnsville. It'll connect 6 of your city parks. And one of the key features of our regional greenway system is that we're trying to provide grade separated crossings at major roads, so like County Road 42, like Trunk Highway 13 in Burnsville. So eventually we will have grade separated crossings, so pedestrians will not interact with cars at those major roads. And we're doing that throughout the county. One of the other things that these projects bring to the cities that we work in is it brings a partnership with Dakota County. So as we complete these projects, Dakota County assumes the ongoing or the routine and ongoing maintenance of the greenways. There's other opportunities for partnerships, such as on trailhead facilities that will be developed and on natural area restoration projects. So we'll continue to work with Burnsville once we've established this greenway, and there'll be many opportunities to collaborate into the future. So with that, I think it sets the kind of the stage for this project and the importance to Dakota County on creating these connections. And I should mention the dash line up to the Minnesota River, so that's a longer range connection. That will be done as we work with with Burnsville on the redevelopment of that northwest area. So while this 4 miles will function great as a connection to many of your parks in the near term, the bigger vision is connecting up to the Black Dog Trail and beyond, up through Egan and up to St. Paul on the Minnesota River Greenway. Likewise, similar connections to the south towards Farmington. So with that, I think Kirsten from our consulting team will talk about some of the input that we've heard to date.
Madam Chair and Commission members, thank you so much for having us today. So I am Kirsten Gray. I am a public engagement person, and I am working on this project to help get community input. So let's talk about how we are getting input from the community. So first, a bit of context. In 2017, the city surveyed the community as part of the Park Master Plan update. The surveys that they did as part of that update indicated that trails are highly valued and a top priority. Trails was the choice of 62% of survey respondents of the parks facility they're most likely to use. In addition, lack of trails and off-street connections was a weakness identified by survey respondents, and 80% of those survey respondents indicated that they also go outside the city of Burnsville for parks facilities. So the recommendation was to provide connections to existing parks and trails. So getting into the community engagement that we've done as part of this project, how are we engaging with the community? We have done 2 pop-up open houses at Sunset Pond Park. So as opposed to a traditional open house here at City Hall, we were out on the trail talking to people. And we promoted those open houses with a mailer on the city's social media platforms and the project webpage. When we were there, we shared project details with visitors and talked to them about their impressions of the project, their ideas, their concerns, and logged those comments so that we could incorporate them into the project feedback. We have also been running an interactive online map called Social Pinpoint. We'll take a look at what that looks like in just a moment, but the idea is that visitors to that website are able to pin their comments and concerns and questions, and it's interactive. People can upvote other comments and see what their neighbors are saying about the project, so it's been an interesting way to get feedback from the community, and we have also incorporated all of those comments into the project feedback as a whole, so that's another way people can tell us what they think. Additionally, we've been sharing information on the project webpage. The project webpage includes the project details, updated maps, events that people can attend. So here's just a screen grab of the Social Pinpoint interactive website. This is still active. People can go ahead and visit it if they would like to contribute their thoughts and pin their questions and comments. The Social Pinpoint is linked from the city's webpage, so if you go to the project webpage, the link at the very top goes right to this website, so it's easy to find, and encourage you to check it out. So, sorry, we've got a bit of a part of my text is cut off, but let's talk about the input from the community, the themes that we heard the most. So, first off, I just want to address this, this map you see here on the slide. This is the initial concept map that people gave input about. So this project concept has since been updated, and we'll be taking a look at the updated version in a little bit here. I think you also have an updated project map in your packet. So some of the themes we heard the most about from the community. The route. Most comments tended to be about the route. In general, we heard themes of preference for improving the existing trail or routing along Judicial or Burnsville Parkway. Safety was another big one. Community members expressed concern for pedestrians, for kids, for dogs with the potential increased bicycle traffic. Third was preservation. People interested in the protection of vegetation and wildlife. And finally, the trail system in general. These comments in general were supportive of more trails and connectivity. And that wraps it up for me. Thank you so much. Turn it over to Ryan to talk more about the project.
All right, I'm back. So in general, what are we trying to get out of this project? We've identified that we have this gap between Sunset Pond Parking Lot and Williams Drive, and that we're trying to fill that, so this engineering study should help us do that. And what we'll get out of it is hopefully the best route and utilizing community input to determine that. And then ultimately, there's an opportunity to submit an application to the federal government for potential funding of this trail, hopefully for years 2023, somewhere around there. That would be the goal. All right, but here's kind of the meat and the potatoes of what we've come up with, merging, or what we think is merging the needs and requests of the people living around there who use it all the time, and those folks who are trying to attract and trying to get into our park and then meet the system plans that Dakota County has, as well as Burnsville's trail system as well. So I'll start down in the southeast corner that we're talked about, and this is the existing Kelleher Trail segment. So this is built, it does go under 42 through the railroad, under the railroad bridge, behind the Ames Business Center, and then on Judicial Road through here, and that turns into Burnsville Parkway, and then into the Sunset Pond parking lot. So that's built. And then way on the north end, north of Williams Drive, we have this Rose Bluff Trail that goes north of Williams Drive, down behind the St. James Church and some homes, and that goes down to the Sue Fisher Fields and the nature preserve down there.
Rudy Kramer.
Rudy Kramer, thank you, JJ. So how do we get between this trail segment and this one here? That's kind of the crux of it. The document that Kirsten talked about showed a dual trail along the east side of Sunset Pond, where we have pedestrians on the existing trail that we used, and we provide a parallel or continuous trail for bikers on here, and that's what we had thought might be the best thing to do. But what we heard a lot was, why don't we widen out this trail so that way we're not getting into as much of the native areas, some of the plants, the pollinator species that grow there that support those types of things. And then when Kirsten talked about the route she was talking about would be to go up Burnsville Parkway here. There is no trail, there is a sidewalk, or there is no shoulders on the road. It wouldn't be the safest biking environment. But so what we're proposing to do is then build a trail on Burnsville Parkway here, and then Judicial Road has nice wide shoulders on it that aren't used for a lot of parking, so we'd likely just sign those to share the shoulders with bikers. So what we're calling this is the basically Sunset Pond bypass. So if you're a avid biker who just wants to get from point A to point B, and you don't want to deal and be challenged with maybe some slow walkers or slower bikers or dogs that might go in front of you, you'd have a route, and it would be signed here saying something about, bypass and go up this way, and the same thing would occur here. And then if you're here more for the recreational experience, then you would take Burnsville Parkway, and then this trail would, some of these steep curbs would be smoothed out a little bit, make a little better biking, so you're not having to slow down quite so much. You'd have a better sight distance. And then and we'd also split it up, so we'd widen it out as well, so that would be pedestrians would know to be on this side of the line, and bikers would be on this side of the line. And this would have, it would definitely still impact some of the plants and species and that sort of thing, but it wouldn't get a whole separate trail. So it would definitely be a lesser disturbance to the park. And then, so you'd follow along here with the widened out trail, and then from this point is where the trail leaves and then goes north. There is an existing trail through the woods. If you haven't been on that, I highly recommend it. It's pretty nice through there. What we're thinking is that we would leave this alone. There should be there's likely fewer people who use this, and it is a pretty nice straight stretch, so you should be able to see quite easily through there. And then this is kind of the key to the whole thing is our team has been able to get some positive correspondence from the Canadian Pacific Railway that they are supportive of us putting an at-grade crossing of this trail, so that way we can cross this rail right in this location by Howell Park. So we don't got a permit, but we've received positive comments from them. We come up through Howell Park and then cross Court Place, and then this dark purple line would be a proposed off-street trail as well. So if your goal is to be the recreational person, you don't want to be on the street, there would be the off-street trail in this location. Might be right against the curb, but it would be off-street. And then here would be the, for those bikers who are comfortable riding on the shoulders and wanted to bypass Sunset Pond Park. So we think that meets the project goals, the greenway goals, the city's park goals of getting recreational users into the park, along with trying to not disturb it as much as from what we've heard from the people who attended the meetings and let us know, as well as providing that bypass for some of those bikers who want to go faster and may not want to have the potential conflicts, because it's just as dangerous for those bikers as it is for the people who may get hit, so they don't want to have that either. So that's the basic concept that we had, and then Matt's here from WSB, and he is going to give us a little more detail on what a couple of those things look like.
Good evening. So I'll get into just a little bit more of the details of the design and just kind of elaborate a little bit on what Ryan had talked about. So this slide here kind of just illustrates the bikers that typically use trails and what their comfort level is. So majority of bikers using the greenways and trails like this fall under that first category, how they're interested but still concerned. So they tend to be bikers who go a little bit slower, prefer trails that are off-roadway, and as you go to the right there, they become more confident and typically go a little bit faster, but also aren't as concerned with using the on-street facilities such as shoulders or the through lanes themselves. So that's where the bypass would come in handy for those higher speed, more confident riders, where the wider trail would be more beneficial for the little bit more concerned users. So kind of just to touch bases on a few of the things, from a safety standpoint, the wider trail would help out with that. Striping the trail to let users know where the pedestrians would be versus the bikers, and adding signs as well to help keep everyone on the appropriate side. So like Ryan had mentioned, the wider trail has a less of an impact to minimize the vegetation loss, tree loss, things like that, making the curves a little bit more gradual and not quite so sharp also would help with some of that safety, and then allowing the bikers with more confidence, a little bit faster bikers to use that bypass. So here's just kind of a general typical of what that trail through the park would look like next to the pond. You would widen that trail out from 10 feet out to 14 feet. You would have probably a little bit wider stripe than what it's illustrated here, but that would separate those bikers. There'd be signs informing them where to go as well. Sometimes on the trail itself, you have like the pedestrian symbol versus the biker symbol, just to further inform them which side to be on. And then here's a picture of Judicial Road. This is just kind of illustrating where that bypass would be. This is right by Howe Park. So somewhere along here, you potentially could have a sign, bypass Sunset Pond Trail for the more experienced bikers, and then you could sign along here that share the shoulder type of things, bikers route potentially, and that would give those more confident, faster bikers an alternative route, a more direct route around the pond. So that's kind of just a little bit of an update on a little bit more of the detailed design. Thanks.
All right, last slide. The schedule next steps, we have basically, the first part here is going through that preliminary design and community outreach. And then we're in this location also at the PNRC meeting. We plan on discussing the plan with City Council on January 11th, getting their input, and then taking all that information and starting our preliminary design, permitting, and some utility coordination, going back out to the public in February, March, describing what we've come up with as the best alternative. And then in April, like I said, our goal is to submit a grant application for some federal funding. So with that, we're looking for any input that you all have, and there may be some public here who's interested in speaking to this as well.
Question, man. As far as federal funding, just curious as to if there's any idea of what percentage that would cover.
So the way the federal funding works is they will cover 80% of the construction cost. So the city and county would be covering the remainder, which would be the remaining 20% of construction, and also any easements that we would need and engineering services that we would need. So we partnered with Dakota County on a similar arrangement with that Kelleher segment that we talked about. So I think it ends up being close to a 50-50 deal by the time we do that. So the city typically uses park dedication funds for this, so it doesn't affect necessarily the tax base because when private development comes in, they pay park dedication fees for new enhancements to the park system, which this totally would meet that condition. They may not pay for that bypass on Burnsville Park. We may have to fund that 100% between Burnsville and Dakota County, but we would, our commitment would be to do that if we were to get that, meet the goals that I think that we've come up with. All right. Any other questions for staff, for the project team? Madam Chair, I don't know if the public wants to come up.
Sorry, Chairwoman, we do have some folks in the audience tonight. I believe some of them might be here to speak to this item. If you are, would you please come forward and be heard? Please state your name, sir, and your residence for the record.
Paul Barron, I live on Sunset Pond. Don't make me do the math, but 25-plus years. I've lived out there for a long time. You just have seen the pond go through and the park go through, a variety of changes, and greatly appreciate Ryan and his team that have been listening to us, because there are concerns with doing this and doing it right. Making the connection can be a very, very good thing, but at the same point, we're already seeing significant problems, especially even now with the addition of the connection under 42. The park is already seeing a lot more usage. I'll circle back, the e-bikes, the e-skateboards, the speed that, they can, go up to almost 30 miles an hour. And eliminating the second path is wonderful, because it saves us so much green space that doesn't exist in the park. Softening curves and widening is only gonna allow these wheels to go faster. I have a dog I spent multiple thousands of dollars on that got hit by a rollerblader. I had 3 near misses. I run nearly daily, and I'm back there with my dog, so I do spend a lot of time back there, and it is a pedestrian paradise at this point. It's a beautiful trail. Softening some of those curves is going to allow them to go faster, and going faster is, especially for inexperienced bikers, it's not a good thing. The north end connection, if I understand that correctly, there's not going to be a change going up through the north end, and that's the worst spot, because it's a downhill run that I was standing at the bottom of the hill one day having a conversation and just about got mowed over by 2 people. Then they were just out for a great ride. But at the same point, they weren't in control of their bikes and didn't realize what they were riding into. So it needs to be done in a way that we're not compounding the issue. And also, if we widen the directionally challenged also. The east side, and the west side is in rough shape. I spoke with the surveyor that came out and he said the east side is, we just redid that when we did the septic pipes. Opposite side, I went over and I looked at the pothole that my son broke his wrist on that required surgeries and pins. It's still there. We open up the east side, people do laps. They're not gonna go a straight pass through. And the people that do laps are going to get comfortable with the speed that they can, maintain on the east side and expect to be able to do that on the west side. And it's bumpy, narrow. We're going to cause more problems by increasing the population of wheeled vehicles that we've already seen. Sorry, I'm not very linear here because I didn't come prepared, but my thumbs were trying to keep up. No, I'm actually catching quite a bit of it. The other thing, and walking the under 42, I'm sorry, I break the rules. I walk my dogs at dusk. I, take them out, after probably the park should be closed. And it's a beautiful path to see a white or yellow striped beacon down the whole line. Some of this has to be done, we keep talking about making this the best experience for who? The bikers, or the best experience for, for the pedestrians and the people that live there? And safety truly is a key component to this whole thing, because we already have a problem, and depending on what we do with this, I'm not advocating for the double lane, because that's not gonna help it at all. But, maybe we do like Minneapolis, make the bikes go one way. Do something different so they can still experience the park, but not, increase the problems that we are having. It's just, it's a wonderful concept, and especially if we can get it across the river. Then it's an even better concept. I mean, it's a matter of doing it in a manner that doesn't damage the wildlife, damage the green space, and actually, keeps it a safe space for everybody. So there you go. I touched on all my points, I believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is anyone else here wishing to speak? Very good. Shannon, I think we can turn it back over to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts, everyone, and thank you for the awesome presentation. There is no formal action required from the commission. Moving on to the 2021 community survey results.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Carissa Larson. I am the city's Communications and Community Engagement Director. And every 4 years, our department is tasked with coordinating a statistically valid survey, one for residents and one for businesses, to learn what's important to the community, allow a variety of voices to be heard in some issues. So like I said, typically we do every 4 years. We're 1 year late on this one. This was supposed to be done in 2020. But there was a lot happening in 2020 and people were being surveyed a ton. Between COVID and the general election, we figured there was a lot of survey fatigue that was happening and we didn't want to accidentally get caught in those crosshairs. So we delayed the community survey a little bit. This went out as a mailed survey to residents and businesses in February of this year and collected results then in the spring. So I'm going to go through just a couple of slides tonight that I pulled out thinking they would be relevant to this group, and certainly there's a lot of information in the survey that I can send JJ afterward and happy to send on to all of you. Surveys, help guide our work, right? These really formal, scientifically valid surveys, as well as our more casual surveys that we do throughout the year. They give us a sense of what we're doing well, what we could do better, and where we could prioritize. This year, we reimagined the survey a little bit. We had been doing the same questions for several cycles, and we wanted to make sure that we were kind of keeping up with the times and still asking questions that were relevant. So we hired a different survey firm this go around. They actually did the results analysis a little bit differently, which I'll explain as we go through. It does mean that it is harder to benchmark this year's surveys compared to some previous surveys. We've got some general ideas, but we don't have necessarily a one-to-one, apples-to-apples comparison. But we do plan to use this reimagined version in the next few cycles, so we'll be able to benchmark from there. So this was a random sample survey of our population. As I mentioned, it was mailed out. There was also an online version, so folks who got the mailed version received a letter explaining the survey, and on it was a unique ID number. So those folks were able to either fill out the paper survey and mail it back, or they were able to go online and enter their unique ID number so that we could tell and make sure that this was someone who was a part of the scientific sample. The online survey was also open to everyone in the community. So those results are not necessarily a part of the results you'll see here. The results you'll see here tonight are the scientific sample, but we do have those results from the wider community as well to make sure that we're engaging everybody. So the survey itself was sent out to 2,000 residents and 1,800 businesses. Responses from the statistical sample received from 365 residents. That was a plus or minus 5.1% margin of error with a confidence level of 95%. That online survey that I mentioned that was not part of the statistical sample, we had 175 residents respond for that. On the business side, we had 207 businesses on the statistical sample. That is a plus minus 6.1% margin of error with a confidence level of 95%. And 4 businesses who were not a part of that statistical sample responded back to the online survey. But both of these results provide a good reflection of the population overall. Our survey firm was not at all concerned about responses. He thought these were great. So what's the bottom line? We put this at the front because otherwise people just want me to skip to the end. The bottom line is that the city outperformed most national and regional benchmarks on the residential side. We were able to take a look at surveys that my consultant did the work, but we were able to look at surveys that are done around the country and benchmark to how we're doing compared to other cities, and we outperformed most of those areas and very consistent on the business side with public sector benchmarks when we had them. There aren't quite as many benchmarks that we can do on the business side. Overall, residents and businesses alike value the services that they receive from the city of Burnsville. And their biggest factors in satisfaction are actually fairly similar on both surveys. So local government management was a driver of satisfaction. On the residential side, we also see taxes, parks and recreation, sustainability initiatives, and Burnsville's vision. And business side, the vision shows up there as well. We also had drivers of satisfaction in the regulatory environment, collaborative environment, and overall location. So we asked a few open-ended questions in the survey, and one of those questions that we asked was, what do you like about Burnsville? And what are some things that you would like to see more of or would like to see done differently? This is from the residential survey, I should say. People love the parks and trails, and they kind of, in general, like the benefits of living in a larger community while actually living in a smaller community, right? They feel close to a lot of amenities without feeling like they live in a large urban area. Enhancements that they desired to see were some improved school ratings, taste of drinking water, and improved road quality, although our consultant assures me that roads show up for him in every Midwestern survey he does. All right, so here's where we start to go into the actual scores themselves. And I will tell you as you look at these, that these are not percentages, which is how we generally read a survey, right? We generally say 75% of people say this. Instead, what we did is we asked people to do a rating. So what you see here are scores. So if you think of it as X out of 100, this is how people scored any particular given amenity. And here's where we also start to see some benchmarks. So dark green and the light green are both national surveys with varying populations. The red and pink are Midwestern results, and the blue is Burnsville's results. This particular slide, community image, this is our brand, right? This is what people think about Burnsville. This is what comes to mind when people tell others about Burnsville, what they like, what they don't like, why they would recommend that you live, work, and play in Burnsville. Standouts to me on this slide, a place that celebrates inclusion and diversity, far on the right there, well outdid the benchmarks. I think that's something that we as a city do very well. We also had some good scores as a great place for older adults, a great place for children, which I think, is another testament to some things that we have to do around here, right? The amenities for folks. Overall experiences, so we asked several questions in these areas that you see, fire service, public schools. We asked several questions in each, and then our consultant kind of wrapped them up by category into one overall score. So this is, what are your experiences with mostly the things that are city-led, some of them not so much like shopping, but, things where you might intersect with city services. And again, standouts here, fire service, law enforcement, of course, are big, but Parks and Recreation was a big standout as well. Let's see, where did that one go? It's over on the far right there as well. Overall, Parks and Recreation was a very high score in overall experiences. All right, this chart's a little different. It's a little denser, but it makes a lot of sense once you kind of break it down. So this is how our consultant starts to determine where can we prioritize. Everything is important, and if you're actually looking at, well, where do we focus our energies, this chart can help us start to do that. So what he's got here is kind of an axis built in different quadrants. So the upper left quadrant here, where it's got number 1 here at the top, this is an area where our scores are high. People are satisfied with these services, but they're not necessarily strongly linked as a relationship to satisfaction. So people often say, well, what do you mean the fire service isn't important? It's not that it's not important. It's important to people, but it's more like people expect it to be here. Right? People expect that their city will have an effective fire service. So they're satisfied with the service the fire department provides, but it's not the reason that they move to Burnsville. It's not the reason they would tell others to move to Burnsville. Our consultant likens it to buying a car. You don't buy a car based on the steering wheel, but if the steering wheel wasn't there, you would not buy that car, right? So these things in the upper quadrant are what people are satisfied with, but they're not writing home about it necessarily, right? The lower left quadrant are things that, again, people aren't necessarily, they're not a driver of satisfaction, but people aren't terribly happy with the score either, right? But it's not a make or break. They're not saying to people, oh, don't come to Burnsville because of this. This upper right, these are our strengths to build on. So these are the things people are happy with, and these are the things that people start to tell their friends and family about. This is why you should come to Burnsville. So these are areas where we want to make sure that we continue to do well, potentially even increase, because these are the things that the people are enjoying. Similarly, then this bottom right are things that people are concerned about. They're receiving lower scores and they are higher linked to satisfaction. So these are the things we want to make sure that we're watching, potential areas to improve or prioritize to work on. So if you look at the areas where folks are satisfied, we'll dive into a little bit more of some of these drivers here. Overall city management is over here at number 42. The city's vision and strategic priorities are here at 89. Sustainability is at 78, right here in the teal. and Parks and Recreation is here at 71, very high up in this quadrant. One of the things I had mentioned earlier in the list of satisfaction is taxes, and that ekes just below the line, but our consultant said this is probably the highest he's seen taxes on this chart, so he counted it as a satisfied. Taking a look at the breakdown of city management, like I said, we kind of wrapped up in that previous chart, we wrapped up these scores, but this is where that overall score comes from, is a variety of different questions. The takeaway here is that our community, our residents have faith in our service and professionalism, our ability to answer their questions and get the information that they need from city staff. We kind of blew the benchmarks out of the water on all of these, which, is a kind of a point of pride that, we're providing better customer service experiences than perhaps others are in similar cities around the country. The last one here on the far right does not have benchmarks because this one was a customized question. So you'll see some of these kinds of things pop up in some other questions that we'll go through where it's just blue, and that was because it was a question that we determined was important. This one is fair and respectful interaction with residents, but wasn't one that we could benchmark against. Like this one. These are all customized because these are our council's visions and values. This one strikes me because these are relatively new. These are only a year and a half old, and they are already resonating with the community. So this tells me that this is a good guide to ground our work and also to communicate progress, right? This can provide us with some language to help people make some connections with what it is that we're doing and why, because these are the goals we're working toward as a city. All right, into some of the Parks and Recreation scores themselves. This was kind of the overall questions we asked about Parks and Recreation. Do the facilities meet your needs? Maintenance and cleanliness, quality of recreation and variety of recreational programs, and then some customized questions on the variety of park amenities and the quality of park amenities. Again, really high scores here. When I go around to other groups, I'm always like, well, yeah, no, not with you guys. You guys have really great scores in the Parks and Recreation. People are very, very satisfied with the services they receive. These particular scores are consistent between about 81 to 83. And fairly consistent actually among demographics. I'll show you how we look at that after a little bit, but for the most part, people are having similar experiences, regardless of age or other diversity. They're having similar experiences when they head out into our park system and take part in our recreation programs. We asked folks, how frequently do you use Burnsville's parks and recreation opportunities? 11% said never. 31% said fewer than 6 times a year. 17% said 6 to 12 times a year. And a plurality at 36% said more than 12 times a year. So again, I think it goes to show that people we didn't have folks taking the survey who never use the system and were taking wild guesses, right? These are folks who are actually using this park system. All right, so now if we take those previous two, right, their experiences and their frequency, we overlaid them together so that you could see kind of just what I was saying. Well, are the people who are using them satisfied with the amenities? So the shade gets darker the more frequently they use the amenities, and that green line goes back to that overall chart, right? So when we wrap them all up, that's what happens with green, but you can kind of see, as one would probably guess, the lower satisfaction scores come from those less frequent users, but generally goes up from there. There are a couple right here in the middle where the satisfaction and frequency, they're kind of the same between the 6 to 12 times and more than 12 times. This one actually dips a little bit, more than 12 times. My guess is that the people who love the Parks and Recreation system may always want more, right? And so that may be where we start to see these level off or dip a little bit, is that they will always just want more no matter how much you give them. We asked several questions about events and the range of kind of entertainment options that people can get in Burnsville. Again, these were well above the benchmarks in most cases. One little exception here with quality of sporting events to attend. But standouts to me were in our cultural offerings, I think that is thanks in part to staff in a variety of departments being intentional about, what is it that we're offering to meet the needs of everyone in our community. And educational programs also is a big standout in terms of what people are appreciating about the types of events that we offer. Sustainability initiatives was another driver of satisfaction in that upper right quadrant there. These, again, were customized questions. Sustainability is one of the big initiatives for staff and commissions and council in Burnsville, so we wanted these to show through in the survey, make sure we were asking about them. Solid scores here as well. Standouts are, a little bit in tree management and overall initiatives, although very closely followed by wetland management and natural areas. Slightly softer scores in buckthorn management and lake water quality. I'll talk about kind of how we reflect on softer scores toward the end, but again, very solid scores in terms of satisfaction with sustainability initiatives. We asked folks to choose 6 or up to 6 most important amenities and services to them. As I kind of looked at it here mathematically, parks was 3rd most important, followed closely by trails and pathways at number 4. Fire and ambulance service was 1, police service was number 2. But again, then you get city parks and trails and pathways. So again, just thinking about our community in terms of what is important to them. Parks in our natural areas are very much up there. They are something they would like us to continue to focus on and prioritize. Of course, we had to follow that up by asking about what they would desire to see. So this one asks them which amenities would they like to see added or enhanced. So there could be some differing thought patterns here. There might be some things that we already offer, and perhaps people are just looking for some more enhancements. So the top 2, obviously, farmers market and walking and biking trails far exceeded most of the other amenities that people would desire. Obviously, we have plenty of walking and biking trails. We have several farmers markets. So a couple of things could be happening here. One, it's possible people can't get enough, right? They would always like more trails. They can always use a farmer's market that works for them in their particular work schedule. It's also possible they don't know about some of those current amenities. Maybe they don't know which trail is closest to their house, or maybe they don't know when our farmers markets are. Probably less likely they don't know about the trails, but maybe they don't know about which one is close to them. So what does that mean? It means these are good areas to ask deeper questions, hold some community conversations, and figure out why is it that you would like these things, or what is it about them that you would like enhanced. These are just the top 15. We tried to kind of clean this up a little bit. The next slide will show you the full 22 amenities that we asked them about. We also asked for an other, so there was an open-ended question on that one. That is one of the things I can provide to JJ as a list of the open-ended answers. I believe we have about 42 pages of open-ended answers on the residential side and 9 or 10 pages on the business side, but you are more than welcome to look through them. All right, so we also, in fairness, we asked people what they wanted, but we did ask, how would you like to see it funded? Because that is always, right, it's easy enough to say, yes, I would love all these things, and a little different when you start talking about paying for it. So we asked people, would they support a small increase in their taxes or fees in order to see an amenity? Would they fund it through an existing budget, or do they not support any funding for it at all? And then we overlaid it with the amenities that you saw selected on the previous slide, right? So that's what that purple line running through is. And this is where you kind of start to have to analyze your return on investment. And that is, everyone's going to kind of analyze that a little bit differently, but you start to see, well, sure, people really want this, but no one wants to pay for it. What does that mean? Or, so just deeper questions to reflect on. All right, I'll jump quickly over to the business survey, though I will say we did not ask too many questions about parks and recreation and sustainability initiatives on the business survey. But I'll show you a couple of their drivers. And one of the things that we talked about, we asked them was, what does Burnsville do well to attract businesses? pretty similar to residents, right? They like that they're close by to a lot of things, but they don't have that big urban feel. Feels affordable to them. The one in the middle, and what Burnsville does well, community, stands out to me a little bit as something this group might have been interested in that they feel like they're involved, which I think, again, is thanks to several departments making connections with the business community, also communicating programs and events that we have to offer them, or offer the whole community, right, and including them as part of, this is for you as well. And also offering opportunities like sponsorships, right? Offering opportunities for the businesses themselves to get in front of the community and be part of that experience. Enhancements, again, roads pops up. They would like to see some increased efforts on crime and safety and continued focus on value paid for their taxes. This is that same kind of driver's scatter chart again, and here you see in the strengths to build on. Again, at number 60, we get overall city management, similar to the residential side. Overall vision, again, similar to the residential side. And then here, some of their drivers are the regulatory environment, the collaborative environment, a little bit softer in those areas. Don't have benchmarks for these questions on the business side, but again, just showing you some of the drivers. These are the results for city management. And again, this shows that, kind of on the business side, that trust in staff, quality of professionalism. They know that they can come to city staff and get some resources and answers. Council vision also resonates with the business community. So again, as we look toward communicating our work, prioritizing the things we do, the vision and strategic priorities are good things to lean back on because they are resonating with the community as a whole. The regulatory environment, these are a little bit more into some of the permitting sides and things like that, but I know that there have been several commissions and council who've been working on different regulations over the years, and since it was a driver, I thought I'd pop it in here as well. All right, so what do we do with this information? It's great to have all the data, but unless you're actually going to do something with it, you've just spent a lot of money to have numbers on paper, right? So one of the things that we received from our consultants are these crosstabs. It's a fairly dense packet with these rows and columns in different shades of blue to red, but this is the heart of the research, right? This is where he's laid out all the scores to help us plan and act. So we'll provide the crosstabs to you as well. The crosstabs, each question was its own column, and then he kind of wrapped them up into an overall, score as well. He's got an overall score across the row, and then each row is the demographic breakout. So as you read through crosstabs, what you're going to want to do is take a look at the shading. If you see over here on the right, you've got some columns that are very consistently blue, right? And that means that regardless of demographic, they're having a similar experience. Now, there may be some areas to dive deeper in, certainly, depending on what that experience is. They go from kind of a dark blue all the way down to like a light blue, and then a white, and then a pink, and then a red, and then a really dark red. So depending on what their consistent experiences are, you may still want to ask some deeper questions to the community, but at least you know, hey, everybody's kind of seeing the same things. If you see columns that are a little bit more like this, where you've got blues, whites, pinks, that means that demographically people are having a different experience. And so that's where we want to take a look and say, okay, what does that mean? Perhaps people of different age groups are not quite getting as much out of a certain amenity as we'd like, or perhaps people of different racial backgrounds have certain concerns, or whatever it may be. There could be a variety of reasons. The key is to not make assumptions out of what it means one way or the other, but that's a place to start the next step. It's a place to start that conversation. And that could be very formal, could be another formal survey, could be some community conversations in some local community, churches or neighborhood groups. It could be as simple as standing at an event or standing in a grocery store and saying, hey, how is this particular thing working for you? And just getting a feel from the community on what information we can take back to help with planning. So as we do that, and as we look particularly at our softer scores, we ask ourselves, well, do we have a performance issue or do we have a perception issue? If there's an actual performance issue, it means we're not doing everything we could for the community, so we want to make sure we address that with some sort of action plan. And when that happens, even if the performance itself gets better, you may be left with a perception, right? People still have that reputation in mind when they take the survey the next time or when they take another survey. And so we could be left with a perception gap where we feel like we're doing everything we possibly could and still people aren't quite reporting that same experience. It is very easy to say everything's a perception issue, right? And just say, we're doing everything we possibly can, especially in those low-rated areas, because we are all doing, everything, we want to do everything we could for the community, right? Of course we do. But even when scores are high, it's also easy to say like, well, we're great, right? Everything's fine. We don't have to do any more, and stop there. So what I'm encouraging everyone to do when I do this little roadshow is to stop and reflect and actually determine, well, are there some areas where we could do better, even when places are great? Can we take it up just that little bit more, just a little bit more, and really do the best that we can for the community? Is there anything else we can do? Or maybe there's certain demographics that we can do better for so that we see those scores reflected next time. This is the kind of model that our consultant offers up in order to kind of help measure our successes here. So the first step in all of this is to measure, get your baseline. And that's what this particular survey is. It is a baseline for us to, kind of keep moving forward, to kind of reprioritize some work perhaps and look at where we're going. Once we take a look, then we brainstorm why perhaps some answers came out the way we did, brainstorm some potential actions, validate those assumptions by holding more conversations, again, formal or informal, and making sure that we are kind of checking ourselves against some other surveys and benchmarks. Once we've got that information and we know where we need to go, then we make sure staff are trained, they've got adequate resources on how to make those things a reality. Step 5 is to put those plans into action, and step 6 is to remeasure. So for my group, that will mean doing the survey again in 4 years as a larger whole. For departments and work groups, it could be smaller surveys along the way to remeasure, right? You can kind of keep checking that way. But that is kind of overall organizationally, the plan that we're trying to take is checking ourselves, asking some questions, holding conversations, and then remeasuring to see how these scores shake out again in 4 years. So there's a lot. And also really high level simultaneously. We'll make sure that you get all the follow-up, but I'm happy to answer questions as best that I can for you. And if I don't have the answers, I'm happy to take them back to our consultant and get the answers for you.
Well, back to slide number 1.
Okay.
There was something on there that indicates people not feeling as safe.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Can you expand on that? I mean, police are fairly high, fire is fairly high.
Mm-hmm.
What prompted them not feeling very safe?
So it says, and in fact, we've got kind of a duality here because we have a safe place to bike and walk, which receives a fairly high score, and then a safe place to bike and walk at night receives a softer score.
Okay.
I hesitate to speak too much for the community and what they were thinking, right? In fact, I was at the Economic Development Commission last week and we had a similar kind of conversation, and I'm not sure that I could really say exactly why. It's possible that that is a natural thing that occurs everywhere, that as it gets dark, everything just feels a little less safe. I don't have the crime stats off the top of my head, but nothing I've seen makes Burnsville stand out as a crime haven at night. So it's possible that's part of it. It's also possible that there are parts of the city that maybe are not lit as well, and maybe that's part of what feels unsafe. Again, I hesitate to say like that's exactly what it is, but that's possibly part of what was coming into people's minds was, my neighborhood doesn't have street lights. And I know street lights they're contentious, right? Everyone loves them until they're in front of their house. But that could be part of what's coming into play. This would be, because we've got this duality here, that would be one area where I would suggest that work groups do ask some more questions just to find out what is it potentially that's going on here.
Okay, well, that prompts a question to JJ. Do parks close at dusk or at 10 p.m.,
10 p.m.
regardless of?
The only park that is open longer is Nicollet Commons Park.
Okay. But no matter how dark it is, the park is open till 10? Okay.
Other questions I can answer for you?
Was there a specific reason under the section about the community amenities why added and enhanced were grouped together rather than parsed out separately?
That's a great question. So that is a question that our consultant helped us write these questions, first and foremost, to make sure we weren't accidentally leading anybody, right? And I don't know why that question is written the way it is. It's a question he uses in other surveys as well. I'm happy to ask him. My best guess is space. Right? You cram in a lot and you try to group where you can, but yes, they are different thoughts. So,
yeah, I was just going to say or comment on that. You know, the graphs can be misleading when you try to combine two questions together.
Yeah, I'm happy to ask him because I think that is an interesting point. So I'll let JJ know what I hear from him.
I guess with that other section being 9-10 pages long, that'll just make that even longer.
Well, thank you again for having me out. I'll make sure that I send JJ all that follow-up information later on this week. And certainly, if other questions come up, let him know, and I'm happy to answer as best as I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let us move on to our last item of the night, which is miscellaneous. Staff, do you have any updates for us?
Yes, Commissioners, we have a short turnaround. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 6th. At that meeting, our December meeting, we typically use that as a planning session, so it will not be televised. We will be planning our 2022 agenda and coming up with the items that you folks would like to hear about from city staff or from the community. So it will be a little less formal. I'm not sure where we will be meeting, if it's in this room or downstairs or in a conference room, but it will be in person as well.
With that, at this time, I would like to request a call for adjournment of the November 15th, 2021 Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting.
So move.
Second.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you in December.